Renner. He's Sam Monson. And today we're going to be talking about the 3 storylines to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into training camp. And the big news that's been talk of all the offseason here for the Steelers is Le'Veon Bell, his contract situation. Going to play this season under the franchise tender, but wants the long-term deal. And the rumor is he's not even going to show up till week 1 to play, or possibly even later. What are they going to do if that is the case?
Yeah, this looks like an ugly divorce waiting to happen. He's apparently already turned down a significant long-term contract, not just this year, but the previous year. They've tried to lock him down long-term, and he just wants none of it. He wants money that I don't think running backs get anymore, and that's the bottom line with his issue. And what it's going to do is it's going to open the door for the guys behind him on the depth chart to have an entire training camp getting significant reps, and that means James Conner is one, but it also means Stephen Ridley, who I think is the most interesting guy on that depth chart, because way back at the start of his career with the Patriots, he had a grade of 83.6, looked like a dynamic, legitimate ball carrier. Not a great receiver, but a dynamic ball carrier. Last season was the first time we really saw him get back towards that kind of play. His grade last season was in the high 70s, the highest grade we've seen from him since 2013. I'm intrigued to see what he can do.
Yeah, I also think that while it would be great to have Le'Veon Bell in the lineup, he's an incredibly dynamic running back, I'm not sure they take a huge hit if he is out or sits out for half the season, because as we saw with D'Angelo Williams, a lot of running backs can be successful behind this offensive line. Yeah. It's still one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. We have them ranked in the top 5 in our 32-team rankings heading into this season. So while, yes, that's going to hurt them, I think it won't necessarily be this huge step back for the offense.
Yeah, and our analytics guys, Eric Eager and George Shahuri, have dug in deep in terms of the value a running back brings in today's NFL, with wins above replacement and a whole bunch of other data. You can check that out on ProFootballFocus.com, which really puts all that Le'Veon Bell contract stuff into stark contrast.
Next thing we're going to be looking for here with the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into training camp is the safety position. Out is Mike Mitchell. Sean Davis might be seeing the bench there. In is Morgan Burnett. In is first-round pick Terrell Edmunds, who might be playing safety, might be playing linebacker as well there. He's lined up at both over the course of this offseason. But how is it going to shake out? Because they were, like I said, Mike Mitchell was fine a season ago. Sean Davis was the lowest graded safety in the NFL. Morgan Burnett was fine a season ago. Terrell Edmunds was one of our lowest graded safeties in all of college coming into this draft. So what are we going to do? What are we going to see from them? Is it going to be much better than we saw a season ago?
That's a big question. I don't know. I mean, Morgan Burnett should be, I guess, a lateral move. He's a quality starting caliber safety. He should be a good fit no matter what they ask him to do. The real big question there is Terrell Edmunds, and what exactly the Steelers were thinking in drafting him in the first round, because we heard that first-round draft hype come out a day or two before the draft, went back and looked at his tape again to find out what we missed, and we didn't miss anything. I mean, the bottom line is he just wasn't a particularly good player in college. He had a 76.7 PFF grade. That's not great. You expect these college guys to dominate at that level. We had a 6th-round grade on him, and the Steelers come and draft him in the first round. They're banking entirely on him becoming something different at the NFL level, which is entirely possible. But where that becomes really interesting is if they think he is a more dynamic nickel linebacker, if they change him in terms of positions, in terms of alignment, and he's able to become a completely different player than he was as a safety in college.
And the nicest thing you can really say about him is that he's 21 years old. Like that's about the best thing you say about him, is that he might turn into a good safety in time, which that was kind of the Steelers' whole draft. You thought they were this team that's close to winning a Super Bowl, and then they take him and the quarterback of maybe the future in the 3rd round. Not really guys who are ready to make an impact right away. So I'm not sure the safety position there is going to get much better overnight.
Except the concerning thing is I think they will expect him to make an impact right away. He'll be starting in some way, shape, or form. I think he's going to have a significant part in this defense. The only question is, how well is he going to do it? The good news is, if he does take Sean Davis' spot, it would be difficult to do it worse.
That is the good news. On to the third thing we're going to be looking for the Steelers come training camp, and it's the edge rush position. They've invested a lot in that in recent years, with first-round picks on Bud Dupree, first-round pick on T.J. Watt, and they haven't been that good, especially Bud Dupree, who had a grade below 50 a season ago. Watt, solid in his own right, but not utterly dominant, not his brother, which a lot of people thought he might be coming out. So what do we expect from them this year?
Yeah, they need to see a step forward from T.J. Watt. I don't think Bud Dupree is ever going to become a particularly dominant edge rusher or even a particularly good player. But if TJ Watt is the answer, they've thrown first-round picks at this position, as you mentioned, Bud Dupree, TJ Watt, and Jarvis Jones before him, and none of them have really worked out. TJ Watt is the closest we've seen to a guy who you look at his first season and think, yeah, he actually has the skills to get this done, but they need a big step forward from him. He had 40 total pressures last season, which isn't a bad figure, but it's half the leading figure among edge rushers in a typical season. They really need him to up that quotient.
And the thing about this that makes this such an interesting storyline is because they've been so good at drafting guys on the interior, guys like Cameron Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, Javon Hargrave, who are good interior pass rushers. But if they just had one guy on the outside who could get it down one-on-one instead of having to be productive off of stunts and unblocked and blitzes and that sort of thing, this could be one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. But so far to this point, they haven't had that guy.
And it's really remarkable. If you look at the statistics, they led the league last season in terms of sacking the quarterback. They sacked the quarterback more often than any other team. Other teams had more total sacks when you count in the number of guys that got there at the same time. But the Steelers were able to generate an awful lot of sacks, scheme up a lot of plays where they get pressure on the quarterback despite not having these obvious pass rushing studs.
That's what we're looking for them heading into training camp. Here's the positional battle we'll be looking for, and it's the wide receiver, the number 2 position there. Martavis Bryant out to Oakland. Juju Smith-Schuster, the incumbent, but he was basically a slot only as a rookie. James Washington, the second-round pick, more suited to the outside to a number 2 wide receiver position. Who do you think takes the job?
Yeah, and I think that's key because they'll both be able to coexist within this offense. Obviously, Antonio Brown is the unquestioned number 1, arguably the best wide receiver in all of football. Juju was a fantastic slot receiver, and I think you leave him there and see if he can continue that year 2. I think that opens up the door for James Washington to start as in year 1 on the outside, where he was so good for us in college football the past couple of years. At the Senior Bowl all week long, he dominated against press coverage, dominated against off coverage. He was one of the best deep threat receivers in all of college football. I think he could start on the outside, even if he becomes the guy that comes off the field sometimes in certain situations. I think all 3 of those guys can coexist as your 3 main wide receivers.
Yeah, I do think when it's all said and done, James Washington does take that job opposite Antonio Brown as the number 2 because it comes down to press coverage. I don't see Juju Smith being as good against press coverage as James Washington is. Like we saw at the Senior Bowl, he was fantastic there. He just has the bigger body type that can succeed there. So I do think when it's all said and done, it'll be James Washington. But if it's Juju, I think that's a good sign for the Steelers as well.
Yeah, I mean, he only takes that job if he's been better throughout training camp than James Washington. And at least from the Senior Bowl plus his college tape, we've seen he's pretty impressive at being able to defeat the Jam at the line.
There you have it. That's what we're looking for the Steelers heading into training camp. Make sure to go to the PFF YouTube channel to check out all 32 of our team previews.